Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. It's Saturday night of conference tournament weekend. Wanted to come in with a little bit of a abnormal podcast, but with how much stuff is going on right now, Big Ten tournament leading into Selection Sunday, figured I'd do a little bit of a Big Ten tournament recap podcast here, and then probably recording Monday night after the selection show Sunday night. Get some time to prepare for a Monday night podcast. But wanted to come here today. Purdue obviously bounced in the Big Ten tournament semifinals. A bizarre Big Ten tournament. I'm about to get into it. If you don't already, be sure to follow the show on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. Lots to talk about. If you're listening to this before the selection show, be tweeting out some stuff about Purdue's opponent, Purdue's draw all night Sunday. And then there's going to be plenty to talk about, all week as we go into one of the best weeks of the year. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that podcast. I will preview the NCAA tournament there. We'll see. Still kind of figuring out what I want to do in terms of post-game podcasts for the NCAA tournament as far as Purdue advances. But be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. So Purdue makes it to the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament and then falls. A 67-62 win over Michigan State on Friday, a 76-75 loss in overtime to Wisconsin on Saturday. Obviously, if you're Purdue, the biggest takeaway from this thing is that you're healthy walking away. Purdue came into the Big Ten tournament in a pretty rare spot where it had very little to gain and very little to lose outside of injury, because that's always something that everyone can lose. But Purdue couldn't really help itself in terms of NCAA tournament seeding because Purdue was already in the spot where it would be the Midwest region number one seed, really no matter how things went in the Big Ten tournament. And, again, Purdue couldn't really hurt itself because Purdue wasn't going to fall from that spot. Purdue was kind of locked into where it needed to be, whether it's the number one overall, number three overall, number two overall. I don't know, but I don't know that it really matters all that much. Injury was your one fear, and Purdue had a bit of a scare Friday when Braden Smith went down. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as it looked at the time. At the time, it looked a little scary. Braden Smith's down, grabbing at his knee, brought back some real flashbacks for Purdue fans to some not-so-happy times. Comes back in the game, listed as questionable for the Wisconsin game, plays quite a bit. Forgot to leave the stats open, but he plays quite a bit and, really looked fine. He didn't have, his best day. I don't know that he was 100%, plays 36 minutes. I don't know that he was maybe 100%, but he looked pretty close to it. You couldn't really tell that there was something bugging him too much. Sounds like it was a calf strain. I know there was some hyperextended knee thought. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I have no clue. But Braden Smith being healthy, being 100%, or close to it for the game on Saturday was a wonderful sight. Zach Edey got his ankle tweaked up a little bit on Friday, it looked like. That's been lingering for a little bit now. It seems like he's got a little bit of time off to heal that up. It's not really impacted his play one bit, but nonetheless, Purdue comes out of this thing healthy, and that's your biggest takeaway. When you look at these two games, Purdue faced a little bit of danger against Michigan State because Braden Smith was in foul trouble early, and then he wasn't 100% healthy in the second half when Purdue needed him to be to kind of put that thing away. Purdue lost to Wisconsin because it turned it over 16 times. This is the story of Purdue's losses all season long. This is the story of some of Purdue's losses going back a few years now. Purdue turns the ball over, and it really puts itself in a mess around and find out situation because You cannot turn the ball over on 23% of your possessions and expect to win against a formidable opponent. Whatever little slump Wisconsin went in February and, I guess a little bit of late January or so, it's snapped out of. It's playing pretty decent basketball right now, but, Purdue's still the better team. When you turn the ball over that much, that's 16 shots that you don't get. When you're making 45% of them, there you go. You cut that down, you make a couple more shots, and this thing's over in regulation. I know it's not always that simple, but it kind of is. And you look at these turnovers, Zach Edey has 4, and Braden Smith has 2. You're going to deal with some turnovers from those guys just based on style of play. You want to cut down on the 4 for Zach Edey, but it's the 3 from Lance Jones. It's 3 from Mason Gillis. It's a pair for Miles Colvin. Those are the ones that really eat at you a little bit, because those aren't the guys that you live and die with. Those aren't the guys that have the ball in their hands a ton. Those ones really hurt. Wisconsin did a really good job at getting out and pressuring the perimeter, and it wasn't, simple ball handling, just dribbling turnovers. It was jumping passing lanes. It was a nice job by Wisconsin, but also Purdue's got to be better, more secure with the basketball. That, more than anything, is why Purdue loses this game and why Purdue, leaves the Big Ten tournament a little early. It's not a secret that Purdue's players and coaches are blind to. They address it all the time. It's an issue for lots of teams. Few teams can survive 16 turnovers and win a game. But that's what ultimately did Purdue in on Saturday against Wisconsin. It was interesting to see Miles Colvin get some more minutes. He got some extended run for the first time in a little while. And credit to him, he made the most of it. He got his shots up. He knocked some down. I thought he did a nice job for the most part. I think a big part of him getting some of those minutes was Braden Smith being off the floor. Matt Painter has been very conscious this year, and really, in unpacking the loss to FDU, he was very transparent that Purdue's got to have more offense on the floor. And Miles Colvin gives you some offense, especially when Braden Smith isn't out there. That's your second best offensive player in Braden Smith. You take him out, Lance Jones is handling more of a primary ball handler role. Things look a little different. Miles Colvin came in and did a pretty nice job. Now, are there still ups and downs? Absolutely. He's still growing into being a Big Ten player, and that's okay. But it was positive to get him out there, get him some run. I thought, really as a whole, if you got to be pleased with what he did. Overall, it's not like there's a ton to say about this Big Ten tournament. It's not like there's a ton new overall with Purdue. You didn't learn anything about Purdue this weekend that you didn't already know. When Purdue turns the ball over a bit, it gets vulnerable. One thing to point out, Zach Edey has some serious foul trouble against Wisconsin. He sits the majority of the first half, picks up the 2 fouls on one play with a push-off and then an offsetting tech. A couple of technicals in the Big Ten tournament for Zach Edey. I don't think you love that trend, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know that that's something to be too terribly worried about going into the NCAA tournament. I think a lot of the familiarity in the Big Ten probably boils over, but nonetheless, not ideal. So Purdue saw a lot of different lineups. Purdue put out a lot of different combinations. I think that's a positive. I don't love the narrative that the Big Ten tournament is meaningless. I think that's a slippery slope. Just ask college football bowl games how that's gone for them. But it isn't the biggest deal for Purdue. And I think as we've seen how this Big Ten tournament has played out, I don't think it's the end of the world that Purdue isn't dealing with Illinois on Sunday at 3:30 right before the NCAA tournament. There's something about that matchup. It's become a bit of a rivalry. The programs are polar opposites. They don't like one another. All of that. But just a super up-tempo game where Illinois would have no problem being physical and running its mouth to Purdue. I don't think it's the end of the world that Purdue's not dealing with that. You want to win everything you can. You want to win the Big Ten tournament, just like you want to win the regular season and you want to win the NCAA tournament. Because when you have the chance to win things, you want to win them. But, this season for Purdue was never going to come down to the regular season. Purdue did a terrific job throughout it. Went 28-3, won the Big Ten by 3 games, defeated, ran the table through one of the nation's toughest non-conference strength of schedules. It went as well as you could have hoped. But the regular season's not going to define this year. Ditto with the Big Ten tournament. It is what it is. Purdue lost to Wisconsin. It is tough to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. That thing's always true. I don't know. I know the data doesn't always back that up, but nonetheless, we'll roll with it. It's not the end of the world for Purdue. You go back to West Lafayette. You can refocus and just get ready for the NCAA tournament. The highlight of Saturday's game, no doubt, is Zach Edey becoming Purdue's all-time leading scorer. It got a little lost in the shuffle of the game, and certainly, with the discourse around Purdue losing, that's drowned it out a little bit, as well as the fact that it was kind of a foregone conclusion. It wasn't much of a mystery. There came a point this year, really in February, where it was pretty obvious Edey was going to get this thing. Now he's officially done it. I don't want to just beat the same dead horse over and over again because I've talked about Zach Edey quite a bit lately. You're never going to see this again. And you may see someone break this record. I have no clue. Rick Mount had this thing for over 50 years. I don't know that I would have bet on someone breaking it. Zach Edey does it. Whether someone breaks this or not, I don't know. It'll probably happen at some point. Things tend to get broken, but there will be many more great players who come through Purdue. None are going to have the story of Zach Edey. It's been truly remarkable. You can sit here and debate the accomplishments of Zach Edey and Rick Mount all you want. Rick Mount didn't have the three-point line. Rick Mount played in fewer games. Rick Mount also took a lot more shots. It is what it is. You can debate it all you want. You can't debate the excellence of Zach Edey and the impressiveness of what he's done at Purdue. He's developed this role as a bit of a villain when you look at Twitter and some of the college basketball discourse, especially across the Big Ten. It's ridiculous when you kind of get to understand who he is as a person, but when you have that level of vitriol thrown towards you, that's when you know you've made it as a player. And Zach Edey certainly has made it as a player. He has been tremendous for Purdue, and I'm happy for him at least that part's over. Now they go into the NCAA tournament. That's not something that's going to come up. That part's over. Good for him. So as I record this here, a little after 10 o'clock on Saturday night, we're less than 24 hours from having a bracket, less than 20 hours. We'll have a bracket. After the Purdue loss, I had tweeted that I expected Purdue to be the number 3 overall seed. That was before Houston got eviscerated by Iowa State in the Big 12 title game. Houston loses by 28. Maybe Purdue's 2, maybe Purdue's 1. I really don't know. It's going to be in some order: Purdue, Houston, and UConn. I don't know that it really matters. UConn won the Big East tournament. Purdue and Houston did not win theirs. It doesn't necessarily matter because each school is going to get the region at once, and that's your big priority. Purdue's going to get the first weekend in Indianapolis, second weekend in Detroit, assuming it gets there. If you look at just back at, I think the preseason preview episode I had talked about where if you look at this in a perfect world, Purdue's in that Midwest region where it starts off in Indianapolis, then would go to Detroit. Purdue got there. That's exactly what Purdue's going to get, barring a stunning turn of events in the selection show, which I cannot imagine. That's where Purdue's at, and that's really nice. That's going to be, it doesn't guarantee you anything, but it sure helps, and you'll always take that. I'll close with this. Purdue's going to go into this. There's plenty of angst. You can feel it built up. You can look at Twitter, message boards. A lot of the folks that, really I've never seen anything like this where the general consensus seems to be that it's a good thing that Purdue lost. I don't know. If you look at the trends, the team that wins the national title tends to lose the couple weeks before the selection show. And, the 3 games in 3 days leading up to, being the last conference to play its championship game, sure, maybe there's something to that. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think there's a great side to this where you either really need to win it or you really don't, but this is where, for Purdue, things get real because the pressure is about to get cranked up to the level 1,000. And this is what it comes down to. It is what it is. This is where Purdue's at. If you want the absolute best possible spin zone here you go. Purdue opened the season on a 7-game win streak. Then it loses to Northwestern and rips off another 7-game win streak. Goes to Nebraska, gets boat raced, then Purdue wins 9 straight. Between losing to Ohio State and losing to Wisconsin, Purdue won all 6 of its games. So the math tells you Purdue has won at least 6 in a row after every loss this season. If Purdue does that again, history is going to be made. You can get way deep into all of the little March Madness trends of losing fairly recently before the selection show. Purdue checks that box. The KenPom metrics, I'm not 100% sure because there are still some games being played, but, right now Purdue's number 3 in adjusted offense and number 21 in adjusted defense. I think that falls into the parameters of what you look for in a national champion, I believe. Not 100% sure on that, but I believe that's the case. It's got the path that you'd want. Everything you would like for Purdue is kind of pointing its way here. We'll see if it happens or not. We'll see about the draw. But I think overall, Purdue enters this thing 29-4. It's hard to picture being in a much better spot. And Purdue got out of that Big Ten tournament healthy. Purdue got out of it, even though it didn't look like it at one point, Purdue got out of it healthy, safe. It's all good. Now it just waits for Friday. And when Friday gets here, it's going to be time to go for Purdue. And we'll see what goes on. But as I said, didn't want to take too much time to talk about this, but wanted to get something out. Let's do a Q&A before the NCAA tournament. So start sending questions in. Going to plan on recording Monday night. If that changes, I'll tweet it out. But we'll plan on that. Send over your questions on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. We'll break it all down here. Let's make Monday a big one. Let's have some fun. We'll talk all about the selection show, Purdue's draw, Purdue's path to the Final Four. And yeah, should be a good one. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for spending your time with me. As I said, be sure to follow on Twitter, at Boilers Beyond, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Should be a lot to talk about here. Thanks for hanging out and enjoying, and let's do it some more. Until Monday night, guys, take care.